Yeah, I've done several training. Last PDC I attended that you held. I was there
Which one was? You came at Homer Bay.
because I'm coming from home.
Gotcha. I remember now. It's a lot of. It becomes a lot of faces over the years, Nicholas. But of course, I remember now. Yeah. So we did some days there, didn't we? So it's good to think in that way, and using these ethics and principles as a tool to think your way through things. And we just started there, but and think. So go back and think about at Permo Africa at the training centre there, how Paul has continually done observe and interact, catch and store energy, obtain a yield. And the fourth one, well, I'll go to the six because the first six, there are 12, because it's such a clever sequence, is obtain a yield. In the process, then, you're building what? You're building a garden. And think of Permo Africa and what that's like, and think it has many elements, doesn't it? Some of the trees are for shade, some have wild birds in, some he's collecting the leaves for compost, and then all the different raised beds and the different things he has there. So think about how those principles he's done. He's done the observe and interact, catch and store energy, obtain a yield, and then he's built a system. That garden is like an interconnected, it's like a little forest or a little habitat. And as when you look at a system, you understand that it's giving you feedback. It's telling you whether it's happy or not, and you can make changes to sort of tweak it to allow it to develop and grow. And so you can see how Paul is constantly interacting with that environment, obviously, and the students and the volunteers. But think about that as a constant process. That is permaculture. It's the fact. It's not of any one feature that he has. It's because he's constantly asking himself, what are the yields I need? What are the resources? Is the system happy? Oh, look, this bit's a bit wet. This bit's a bit dry. Can make small changes. So principle 5 is use and value natural resources and services. So he's valuing that garden is, and number 6 is eliminate waste, produce no waste. Or another way of thinking of it is there are always opportunities in the waste stream, materials and things, anything that other people don't value, you can access those things for yourself. So there's your 6 principles of how to think about permaculture. And that's how Paul has approached design at Permo Africa. Now, the next thing that we could say is, if I gave you exactly the same resources as what Paul has, and I told you go away and build a permaculture centre, it would look completely different. And it's because it would be made by you in your place, and you have different priorities to Paul. You maybe have different skills, or you have your own individuality, right? So, and you would interact with your environment. So we can also say permaculture is not a formula. It's not like you have to replicate something. It's the process. And remember what I said, the first ethic is you've got to feed yourself first. So if you're designing a garden, it has to nourish you. And if you're designing a garden or anything, it needs to reflect the skills and the resources and the knowledge that you have. I hope that's useful. I'm just freestyling a bit, Shanaz, in between people arriving. And I met Nicholas in Homer Bay in Kenya at least 2 years ago, but she's reminded me because I'd forgotten slightly. But so it's great to see him again and kind of recap. And so to steer back to my theme of permaculture and leadership is Paul Agola is a true leader because he's led by example. He doesn't. You don't see him standing in the marketplace saying, "Hey, everyone!" Shouting slogans and telling everyone to do permaculture. He just has done it, and in doing it, he's discovered it for himself, and his enthusiasm for it just spills over, and draws in people. So that is some. So that is someone that we can all learn from and be inspired from, and you can be, privileged to have someone such as Paul in your community. He doesn't know all the answers. He's not a all-knowing, but he's approaching it by observing and interacting, building systems that catch the soil energy. He's literally applying these ideas in a constant way, and that's what you can do also. Well, we all, that's our challenge for all of us. In whatever field that you work in or that's your priority, it doesn't have to be around farming and building gardens. Okay, he might have run out of data at that point. He did warn me. But I'm being less compassionate and more ruthless about subsidizing because it's too difficult. Anyway, I noticed that. Oh right. Okay. Oh, it's Nicholas is back there. Look, we'll see. And it's a couple of minutes till our official start. Put the cat on the bed. Oh, how is poor thing? She's okay.
She's okay. She's okay.
I should have made the bed. It's not a good look, is it?
That's better.
It's a bit less like I was in a hotel room or something. Should be a naked woman lying on the bed or something. No, I've just got a cat. So yes, I'm using little bits of computer gizzardry to try and summarize what we talk about, and I'm also taking a video. That's just in case we say something of great import. We could do a live stream as well, but I don't think it was anyone coming. Well, I'm expecting Laura. We confused everyone last week with the time change. So anyway, I've done it again this week somehow. Stupid.
Well, you haven't confused. You've given us the right timing.
I have actually. I have. It's just not everyone appreciated it. Had quite gone in. So in a few years ago now, I should have looked it up. David Holmgren. So we're not quite there actually ready to start. Let me just check it. I'm just going to do There we go. Greetings. Okay, so what I normally do on these sessions is I will talk for however long, 45 minutes or so, and then we'll have a chance to go around and chat and share and have any questions. And if I talk a bit at the first, it's so that people might join us a bit later. So I don't want to miss the most important bit. Really, is everyone talking to each other. And I'm just going to talk about a bit more on the theme to get us all thinking, and carry on this idea about permaculture and leadership. Permaculture, we're interested in change, how we deal with change, and how do we build plans, how do we design, how do we, because we want to create change that has positive outcomes, change that can be sustainable, and so much more, and also be highly effective. And permaculture encourages us to learn from natural systems, from the natural world, and to see nature as our teacher, and to kind of put ourselves into a state of mind, really, where we are allowing ourselves to ask fundamental questions, and to continually observe and interact and take in new information. So we are all leaders of one. I think we've said that so far in the sessions. Is, it's down to me to get myself out of bed in the morning, and my first responsibility is to take care of myself, is to feed myself and wash and get my boots on, whatever it is that I need, so that I can help other people. That the objective isn't just for me to consume endlessly, but we try to meet our needs, set limits to our own consumption, so that we can help other people meet their needs, so that we can have a surplus to invest in driving forward change, to developing and actioning our design as a permaculture designer. So there's Andre there, developing ideas and strategies to think about how to advance permaculture at Kakuma. And to achieve that goal, he needs to have a vision, have an idea that he can articulate, and then he needs to identify other people around him who can share that vision. And what I have said to you each time is, I think if we're going to work effectively for a long time with other people and to build community, it has to sit on the permaculture ethics, so that we have a sort of a common vision and a common trust. Because, and that's this idea of, yes, we feed ourselves first, but we don't take more than we need. We use that surplus to build relationships with other people, to build community, and to build a relationship with the natural world. So fair share, people care, earth care, or earth care, people care, fair share, as a way of remembering. And if we understand that that's all I'm trying to do, guys, is all I want to do is to meet my needs whilst helping you meet your needs. So we're not rivals, we're not competitors, we're collaborators. We're here to cooperate. So that's where, again, permaculture, its values are put into this idea of cooperation. If nature's our teacher, when we look at the natural world, we see examples of cooperation and partnership in so many different ways. And what we might call mutually beneficial relationships. So our approach to design, our approach to problem solving is to develop mutually beneficial relationships. So again, And we have to be strategic. You can't talk to everyone at the same time. You can't solve every problem at once. So again, permaculture gives us a strategy and a priority. And quite often, we like to start by thinking about food. Not because food's the only thing that matters, but food really matters. Well, actually, water, and to think about how we build strategies around those things, which can support that function. So, there's how I thought about leadership. Now, but one of the things, now I'm going to go into some sort of biggish ideas in the next sort of 15-20 minutes. But I want to set this as a context, and I hope it's not too, let me just get the page up. So all of this is, it's all on the website as ever. Share screen. So I'm trying to, oh, there's one in chat there, is it? Okay, that's okay. So I have I've created a web post for this session. It's session 3 of 6, permaculture and leadership, and I've subtitled it Future Scenarios. In 2009, David Holmgren, who's one of the co-authors of permaculture, wrote a book called Future Scenarios. So that's now 15 years ago, and it was what he was thinking about, what kind of future we're moving into. And I thought this is really interesting to revisit this now, and it frames the idea of where are we going, what are we preparing for? And the answer is, of course, is we don't know. As somebody said, it's really difficult making predictions, especially when they're about the future, which is kind of a joke, but so there we go. And based on the fact that we don't really know what's coming, let's move into this and enlarge on this theme. David Holmgren had us think about two things, or maybe just people arriving. That's Clovis. So David Holmgren said this in 2009. He said, "There's two very, very powerful forces of change which are beginning to shape our lives, and we don't know exactly how it's going to fold out, how it's going to transpire. But one of those things is climate change. The climate is changing. We're seeing erratic weather patterns. That's going to have all sorts of consequences about the kind of buildings we build, where we build, how we deal with the weather that we experience. It's going to affect farming, water. We're seeing more intensive storms and longer droughts and things like that. These are things which we can see are happening. Now, climate change, think of it as a continuum. It could actually be fairly slow and fairly benign. And perhaps in some parts of the world that is how it will be. We don't know. But it also is, just the other extreme is, it might actually be very rapid and quite severe. So somewhere we're going to be in between those two extremes. So we can think about how we might prepare for a range of different things of uncertainty. Remember, this is about leadership. This is about us looking ahead and anticipating where we might be going. Now, the other thing that's the other powerful force is actually, I'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute, but we might run out of oil. Because oil is a physical thing. It's a mineral resource that sits in the ground. And you have to dig holes and do complicated mining to get it out. And everything about the modern world is made out of oil. All the energy for transport, for planes, for intensive agriculture, for big machines, for pumping water, all of that is oil, diesel, gas, petrol, jet fuel. It's all the same. Plastics, ammonia for fertilizer in agriculture, all of that is made from oil and gas. And what we know is, maybe we'll never run out, maybe that's the wrong question to ask, but can the world keep producing it at a faster and faster rate? And the answer is it can't. So there's actually, and for climate change, it might be a good thing that we run out of oil, but not to oversimplify and not to scare anyone, but what we're saying is the onset of energy descent, of oil running out, again, might happen quite quickly. It might happen all of a sudden, or it might be a long, slow process. We don't know. So what David said is we now have 4 different possible futures. We have the future where climate change is really bad and peak oil is really bad, and we're probably going to struggle with that. And we need to spend some time thinking about what that might be like. It might be that the oil doesn't run out very quickly and we carry on burning it, but that might make the climate problem worse. What would that world be like? If the two things happen quite slowly, we might be able to adjust. We might be able to sort of construct a genuinely kind of sustainable world. Or we might have a more benign climate and a chance to slowly wean ourselves off oil slowly. And so actually gives us straight away possibility of just saying is we can't predict the future. We don't know. But it could be one of 4 things, and it could be a mixture of all of those things. Now, so I wanted to talk just a tiny bit about the oil thing, because this is really, really, really important. Is we've got a very simple graph, and this is time going this way, and on this axis it's the amount of oil that we can pump. Let's imagine that we find just by ourselves, we find a single new oil field, and we drill some holes in the ground, and slowly the oil starts coming out. We start pumping the oil. As we explore that oil field, we find where what we might call the sweet spots are, where the good stuff is, where we can get the most flow, and we drill more holes, and we keep on drilling, and the amount of oil coming out from our oil well gets more and more and more. So we go, hey, we're rich. Let's plan for a world where we're all rich and we have loads and loads of cheap energy. Well, then slowly the pressure goes down and you have to drill more wells, and then you have to pump the oil out of the ground. So you start consuming the energy that you're producing. And no matter what you can do, no matter what you do, slowly, your oil field starts to dry up. And there's a point where you have to put more energy in terms of work than you get out in terms of oil. And that's what's called peak oil. You can't do it anymore. And each individual oil field, of which there are many, follows a curve a bit like this. And what happened is, in the 1950s, actually, this was a long time ago, an American geologist who was called Marion King Hubbard looked at all of the wells in the United States and realized that no matter what they did, the amount of oil that they produced would start to drop off in about the year 2000. In fact, I think 1970 was his first prediction date, and he was pretty much correct. But of course, what's happened is we didn't just stop there. We kept on drilling, and we went into the Arctic, and we went into the oceans, and also especially in America, they found a thing called shale oil or tight oil. And this isn't really oil. And you have to put a lot of energy into the ground to get it out. And it's a lesser resource. So this is what happened to the American oil production is it peaked in 1970, exactly like Marion King Hubbard said it would. But then they found some more. They found some in Alaska and they found some in the sea. But those, like every other oil field, follows the same curve. And the realization is that did I put it in here? There is, I haven't put it in. I was listening to a podcast, to a broadcast this week on this topic, and what they said, which was very interesting, which is alarming. So, the central idea is that the deeper the hole you have to dig, the smaller the energy return. You have to do more and more work to get less and less out. So there's a drop-off point where it doesn't work anymore. And for the UK, for the North Sea, where we get our primary source of oil from, that date is in 7 years. That's what this person has predicted, in 7 years. And they've also said that the Alaskan oil field, again, has about 6 or 7 years until it's no longer profitable, energy profitable. You can't subsidize with money because this is energy, this is real. So back to David Holmgren. This is a little bit interesting to explore. This is David Holmgren's 4 possible future scenarios, and one is that this is, so imagine here's time, and here's the amount of energy that we use, here's the world population, here's the amount of pollution that we produce, that over time we've also followed the same sort of exponential curve. There was someone on the radio today, they said their mother just passed away who was 98, and when they were born there were 2 billion people, and there's now 8 billion people. So in one lifetime, the amount of people on the planet has gone up enormously. And in that same time, we started burning oil. We started driving around in cars. We started living much, much more intensive, energy-intensive lifestyles. We started using resources from further away. We started more processed food, more travel. Now, many of these are good things. We've had a raise in living standards and really a remarkable period of human history. And David argues that the idea that we can just carry on like that at some kind of technological explosion is not realistic. And for the reason of peak oil, for the reason of climate change, that if we think we can ignore the evidence that we're causing immense damage to the natural world, we will collapse. And we'll be in a survival situation. And we'll look at that in a minute and think about how but that's a possibility. And we have already can see examples in countries where for a combination of reasons, of climate, of economic, or also conflict, the systems there have collapsed, and it's very painful, and a lot of people get hurt. So carrying on thinking everything's going to be fine forever probably leaves us in the worst of all scenarios. Now, this next line is saying, instead of having economic growth forever, instead of pretending we can keep building more cities and roads and have more and more people, can we create a kind of green society, a sort of a wind-powered, stable state society, a genuinely sustainable development? And the answer to that is, we generally left it a bit late, and that perhaps we should have started a lot earlier to get to that state. But maybe some smaller countries are already nearly at a sort of a green technological state. And there are also other countries which have not gone down the techno explosion pathway, so they have more options. And the other pathway, the other possible future that David is inviting us to consider, to explore, is permaculture. We need to be very, very creative and deliberate in how we approach this transition. We can see that it's coming, and we can ask ourselves, how do we prepare ourselves for it? And this is why I say this is about leadership. This is about realizing that we might say, as we move down this line, as we become less reliant on fossil fuels and of non-local resources, we're building resilience. We're building an ability to be more resistant to change. And I find all of that really, really interesting. So let's go back to David Holmgren's, this nice graphic of David's, is in this scenario where climate change is rapid and very destructive, where oil declines very quickly, we're not going to be able to sustain these really globalized, complex systems that we have developed. And I think the picture there is someone slaughtering a kangaroo or something like that. So it's the idea of, I guess, living off the wild or something like that is. But it's interesting that, so rather than calling it collapse or something very negative, he's called it lifeboats. So that's the scenario where, should systems break down to the point that we have to reorganize on a very local level, firstly, we have to think about ourselves, our immediate family, to create our own lifeboat. We need to survive. And then as time goes on, we need to kind of raft together, if you like, with other lifeboats to start rebuilding and organizing society from the bottom up. But this is a scary scenario. And so we want to think about getting into the permaculture way of thinking, the to be climate friendly and not dependent on oil. So again, in this scenario here, we have a fast oil decline, but the climate remains relatively benign. So that's us, guys. That's us working organically with local and natural resources, eliminating waste, building community. We can do this. We know how to do this. This is what permaculture is training us to do. And if we find ourselves in a lifeboat situation, as in something has really collapsed, this is where we're trying to get to, is into what David has called earth stewardship. But think about what that means to you, and that might look differently. What you are aspiring to might look differently for what I'm aspiring to, and we might have different resources and different opportunities. But this is kind of where we want to get to. Now, David's also saying is, look, if there's a slow oil decline and the climate change is quite slow and benign, that gives us time to build a different kind of economy, to build a green economy. There are islands in the North Sea called the Faroe Islands, and they're putting in wave turbines and big wind systems, and they're going to be able to generate all of their own energy from within their little chain of islands. Now, whether they're able to manage, to maintain them and replace them over time is another question. But given time, making it a priority, some, especially smaller countries, are moving to green technology and moving to more organic farming systems and more renewable energy systems, and also reorganizing things so we don't need so much energy. The fourth scenario that David, depending on which way we look at it, but of course, is brown tech. And this is where it feels that we've been for the last decade or more, is the slow oil decline. They have drilled and they have drilled and they have drilled and they have poured billions of investment into finding new oil, into doing the tar sands and the oil shale and liquid natural gas and all of the different things. It's staggering. Considering what we know about climate change, how much money has been invested in keeping the oil machine going. And to keep the oil machine going means the climate problem will get worse, and that we'll have ever more authoritarian governments that do not represent the people, but represents the interests of large corporations, the kind of corporations that do oil extraction and oil refining and large-scale agriculture. In this scenario, the brown tech scenario, which we're really experiencing this in the West at the moment, is we're feeling a corporate takeover. We're feeling ignoring the importance of the transition to green tech and to earth stewardship. I think that this period is coming to an end, and we're seeing other very big political changes. So I want you to look at these four scenarios and realize the real world is complicated. You can't just make four things and say this is the future. Clearly, things are much more nuanced than that. But if you look within this and you think about your own home, your own community, your own nation, or wherever you are in the world, and think about how these forces are playing out within your own experience, or within your own lived experience, and to think about this journey to earth stewardship and the possibility of the transition that we might have to make when our established lives, may well malfunction or become less easy to manage. So I think permaculture gives us an enormous head start on even thinking about these things. I could talk a lot more about the sort of peak energy thing and the implications of that, and possibly I will if you have questions. But it's the first thing is to think, is just emotionally to process some of that information, to realize it really is down to us to start to build strategies that speak to this reality, because I don't see our top-down leaders doing it. They're all pretending that everything's fine, they're in control, and we'll have, carry on having growth forever. I think we're on a journey, a rapid journey to Earth stewardship, and we are those Earth stewards. And in permaculture is challenging us to think about how we work in partnership with the land, how we work in partnership with each other, and in the process become strong and empowered ourselves as individuals. Great. So there's my opening salvo. I don't want to get, these are obviously big and complicated issues, and we could talk a bit more about if you wanted to know about any one of these topics, but I think you can think of it for yourself. Any questions? So we have a little go around. Would anybody like to just share anything? Any thoughts on that, or anything else you'd like to tell us about? Actually, I'm going to unmute. And just to welcome, sorry, I've just spoken now for half an hour. I wanted to welcome you. Is that Montoili? How do I say that? You're from Lesotho. We chatted in the week. So, Karibu, my friend, welcome, welcome, welcome. And how much regeneration and regrowth is required in Lesotho. So I'm very, very pleased to meet you, and you're really welcome to our session. Would anyone like to say anything at this juncture? Laura, usually very good at saying something intelligent. If you're there.
Thank you, Stu. Well, what I have to say is that when it comes to fossil fuels, the climate crisis, and the interconnectedness with permaculture, I feel like practically every environmental problem that we are facing today is traced back to our addiction to fossil fuels. And I believe that the sooner we get started with alternative sources of energy and recognize that fossil fuels make us less secure and more dangerous, the better off we'll be. Because you cannot expect to continue with unsustainable practices while also expecting positive environmental outcomes. We need to recognize the need to make difficult choices and take action to address the crisis that we are in. Because you can actually not have it both ways. You can't sit on a table with angels and laugh with the devil simultaneously. It is not possible. That is why I appreciate Sector 39 for fronting youth in such sustainable practices and empowering us with the knowledge to be able to make a change, not only in our peers, but in communities where we come from. And the fact that you're teaching us how to be united for one cause, I believe if we continue with this, we are able to make a difference and safeguard our environment through such practices. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very well put, Laura. And the thing that I want to add, not to in any way challenge what you're saying, but is yes, we need to get off oil quickly, but if the big oil machine switched itself off tomorrow, we'd really struggle. So we've got to work out how we have to prioritize that journey and understand, especially us in the West, but for all of us, to understand how much we are still attached to it and reliant on it. Andre, I'm looking forward to hearing you, to welcoming you and hearing you speak. And tell us, also just share a little bit of summary about your background there at Kakuma, for our friend here from Lesotho, so he can have a bit more background.
Question? Can you repeat the question? I didn't.
Okay, I was just welcoming any to share any thoughts, but please to talk about also your ambitions at Kakuma. for our friend from Lesotho can know your background.
Yeah, as Laura said, we are here to empower ourselves and to empower our community, as we are leaders. And here in Kakuma, we want to make Kakuma to make sure that Kakuma there is some changes about permaculture and other activities, because we are the refugees here in Kakuma, and most of refugees are not they are not able to be self-resilient. That's why we are here to train people, to let them know about different things, like to be self-resilience. So I'm Andre by the name, as Steve said. I'm Congolese by nationality. I'm from DRC Congo. So maybe Hassan can talk, even introduce himself.
I'm Hassan Nimeri, a Sudanese by nationality, living in Kenya as a refugee. And we are all in this platform for a new innovation of permaculture in our area, especially in Kakuma, to transform our community at large with the knowledge that we are getting from Steve. You know, especially on our side, we never heard about permaculture. We've been just here distributing the food that we are being given by as refugees, but at the middle of the month, there is insecurity of food, a shortage of stocks and in home. Then we came up with an idea. We have to do this in order to make our community at least sustainable, to provide food for ourselves, and at least to help our own. And our community as refugees and host community, I'd like to bring new innovations to promote unity among ourselves in this platform of permaculture, and also to change our living standards sometimes. Thank you.
Yes, please. Please, yes. Moletsani.
Yeah, thank you very much, Steve. Well, I just wanted also to introduce myself. My name is Monpeli Muletsane from Lesotho. I have just completed my permaculture design course in July of last year. So I'm the only permaculture PDC holder here in Lesotho. I went for permaculture because we have really degraded lands here. The topsoils are washed away. We cannot produce to sustain ourselves. There's poverty, there's crime, there's all that. So I'm into permaculture so that I can try and change my situation and my community's way of life here. And I'm hoping with these networks that I'm making, I will eventually get some help in trying to put these projects that I have in mind on the ground. Because David Holcomb's book that we are just discussing now, the situation is really worse, and we need to do something about it. So I'm really trying to push to plant more trees, to do away, to teach my community to do away with old agricultural farming practices, like maybe tilling the soil, overgrazing, looking out for the ecosystem, and making sure and protecting the wildlife, because one of the problems that we have here in the country is people see wild animal, they see food, they don't appreciate its contribution to the ecosystem. So things are really worse here. So that's I have a lot, and that's my journey. That's me. Yeah.
Well, that's very impressive, you know. So, you know, you're a true leader, and you're bringing this intention back to Lesotho, and you know, you have to seek out collaborators. You have to share your vision with and find other people who can help build and nurture that. And you, around the ethics and principles of permaculture, you have a structure to come about, you know, with purpose and with intention. And there's very few ways out of poverty. Well, I mean, it's kind of, you know, it's very, very difficult, other than to literally bootstrap your way up with what you have already, and to see the potential in the landscape of Lesotho. And it is so overgrazed and bare, but there's, you know, it can always come back, and it grows back from the edges, you know, and you have to find where those edges are, edges of society, edges of place, and there's little wild areas where there is still some wildlife need to be protected and enhanced, and so there's your process. But thank you very much. It's really fascinating, and we're very pleased to meet you and have you here. Anyone else? Stella, would you like to speak? And of Shanaz, you're there.
Hello. Hi, everyone. It's quite dark here. I'm going to switch the light so that you can see me. Hi, everyone. I'm Stella. Thank you so much for the sessions and the submissions that our team members have given concerning today's session. As Laura talked earlier on, it's quite hard to mix the two, oil and gas, and then you have regenerative or maybe sustainable activities being brought on board. Having the two move together is really something very difficult. It's hardly a year when I talked with Steve about expecting climate refugees, and this year we experienced them. So my brothers from Kakuma, don't think you're the only refugees around. We are going to be many. I remember last year, I almost laughed at Steve, but I said, no, this is something serious. It was too hot in the UK that some people even lost their lives. And if I'm not mistaken, some people had to take a flight to go to another place to seek refuge. Steve, am I lying? Didn't people have to move from the UK to another country to seek refuge?
We're getting close to that. We had 2 days where it was 41 degrees, and that's not okay for UK.
Exactly. Now, when you look at our statistics, as I mentioned earlier on, Uganda alone hosts about 15 million refugees. That is Uganda. In Africa, it is the largest. It is the largest country to host refugees. But worldwide, it's the third. Now, just two weeks ago, when we had too much sunshine hitting South Sudan, I remember updating you about the climate change in South Sudan. It was something very serious that people had to move away. Schools were closed. So when we talk about climate change related issues, it causes an adverse effect that some people can't even be in position to come out of it. Now, as permaculturists, first of all, we have to learn how to give warnings to these people. We should be able to notice something unusual. What is likely to happen? And how is it likely to affect the people? You know, we must be ahead every time in our community. As Steve said, we are the leaders. Yes. If we don't lead by example, if we don't lead, no one is going to learn what we're going to do. Because they will always be saying, why is he a leader? Why is he a leader? Because he's not doing anything. So we should be able to always inform the community that this is something happening. And if we don't do it now, when shall we do it? We are getting squeezed daily by the climate-related issues, okay? Now, the issue of oil, it is up to us to teach the people to learn how to use sustainable energy. Like us in Africa, we have a lot of sunshine that we can harvest solar, you know, for drying, for sunlight. You can imagine a few days ago, we had to go off the lights just because we're all we're all looking at electricity, you know? It goes back to what Steve said earlier on. Supposing one day this oil is not there, what shall we do? So we should have a plan. We have to start it now. So I don't want to take much, but there is a lot to be discussed concerning climate change and related effects. I'll always be grateful to share with you people your experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. I mean, this is one way to think about people who become refugees. It's a change in circumstance, whether it's security, the weather, of economic forces, of stability within the countries. But it's these changes that that then are forced upon us, and in reality, it's going to be very many more people are going to have to reinvent themselves, because most of our cities are built, close to the rivers or close to the seas, and we're going to have flooding, and the water levels will change, and so we can think about, we are going through a process of reinvention, that the world that we've been constructing is going to have to evolve to new information. And that new information is climate change, peak oil, it's the things that we're talking about. And so as we reinvent, we have to create our vision is for something that speaks to the new reality, not to the past. If we have to move Kampala, we're not building Kampala again looking like that. We'll be building out of mud blocks and thatch, or out of local and natural materials. If we're and again, to be sort of ahead of this, to start to think about, that's what we're trying to do, and we're trying to regenerate landscape as well. So that's what Molatsani is thinking about, looking at how bare and degraded the landscape has become in Lesotho, and thinking about that, what that transition might look like. And in the process of revitalizing the nature, is the landscape can store more water, the landscape can build soil, become more productive again, because this is what nature does when it's given the chance. It regenerates. So thank you very much for those thoughts. Shanaz, we haven't heard from you. Not to put you on the spot if you don't want to speak, but... Okay, you're okay. You're turned off, but it's okay. All right. Okay. Well, so Clovis is just joining us. I noticed that he's dropped in and out, so I don't know whether he's got a good connection. Clovis, you are welcome, my friend. Karibu.
Yes, Steve. My connection is still.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, I can. Oh.
Yes, I'm here. Hello. Hello.
Can you hear me? Hello.
Shinaz.
Yes, hello. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Good evening, even. It's really interesting to hear all your perspectives. And I mean, I was just looking up some figures there for the global refugee population, and we're close to, I think, 34 million, which is an enormous figure. And I have some experience working with refugees because I used to volunteer in Calais, which is across the water from where I am. But what I wanted to say really was that whilst you have problems with land degradation, I was listening to you, Moletsane, speaking about in Lesotho. You see, we have another issue here where we are so far removed from the source of our foods, where people don't even know, where they think that chicken comes in a plastic packet. They have no idea. So, the problem here is we have to re-educate people about what it is, because they've got so used to, going into a shop and finding things, rather than knowing where exactly they come from. So for us, the challenge is even greater because you might think that we in the West have everything, but no, we don't, because anything in the food supply chain falls apart, as we found out during COVID, and then everything comes to almost a grinding halt. And governments don't know how to do it, and so we have to organize at a local level. It always comes down to the local level. And the other issue is the cost of energy has become so much dearer here. So for everything that we are doing, we are having to pay 6 times more than we were paying 3 years ago. So, we are almost outsourcing ourselves with this sort of growth and production and, ever more. So we really need to cut back. And, I question this myself in my life all the time. And this is why my interest in permaculture, because most people are blissfully unaware. Blissfully unaware, but this bliss will turn into non-bliss because things will become and can become, as we know, very quickly chaotic. So that's all I wanted to contribute. I'm sorry, I've had a week of being a granny, and I'm due to take them home shortly. So I will not be able to stay here longer, but it's wonderful to meet all of you and listen to all your experiences. Hassan and Andre and Montiel, and of course, Stella. And Clovis and Laura, you are inspiring. We want you to be leader of the world, actually. So, people like you and all of you here. So thank you for being here regularly, and I hope to see you again. And thank you, Steve, for making it possible.
You're welcome. Thank you for those words.
Thank you, Shinaz.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah. Clovis.
Yes. Thank you for this opportunity. I saw you have been discussing about the peak oil, and then you talk on the climate change, which is really what we are experiencing every single day. And then I think what I can say now, it is the world now has moved for climate, the global heat. Now we are no longer on a global warming, a global heat. It means like for maybe things. And then, as you said, the key it is in people on the grace level, which is permaculture. Nevertheless, as you saw, the the technology and then the emission of green gases, houses, which has been every single day. People, they are sitting in the conference, they're discussing, but by the end of the day, there is that's a negative, never negative point on the corruption to some government, whereby when it comes for implementation of all the policies and the strategies put in place to mitigate the climate change, it becomes really a problem. So I really appreciate the way you are giving us the insight. And what I can say, just I also had that experience to support refugees for a while, until when I decided to go and then make sure that I further my education, whereby I'm just concentrate on science, environmental, a resource pass on to the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Clovis, and congratulations as well on your completing your studies. It's a fantastic achievement. And Clovis has been looking at agroforestry and soil systems and all sorts. Thank you, Shanaz. Bye bye. You have to go. And Clovis shared with me a very interesting video the other day in about living soil, and this brings us back to that. The climate problem is caused by putting too much carbon into the atmosphere from burning coal, gas, and oil. Plants take carbon out of the atmosphere and build it into the soil. And the more carbon there is in the soil, the more fertile that soil becomes, and the more it can hold water. So this is one of our sort of the strategies that we have to sort of bear in mind, is building soil and thinking about understanding how to behave in a way in which is good for the soil life, the soil microbes, and they themselves help build fertility and build our possibility of correcting these problems and sustaining ourselves into the future. So yeah, thank you very much, Clovis. It was very, very interesting. Okay, let's have a few more minutes. How do we get to the next step? I think that's the question, isn't it? We can sit and talk to each other. I like to say, and I think this is an important point, that permaculture is much more about doing things than it is about talking about them. But we have to have a plan first. So what I'm going to ask you to think about is, well, I get back to our principles: observe and interact, catch and store energy, develop yields. To keep coming back to ourselves we're trying to assemble the resources around us that are going to help us achieve our long-term goal. Our long-term goals: building resilience, building stronger community, and addressing these sort of bigger issues. In the meantime, you have to sustain yourself. So can we catch and store energy to develop yields that are going to feed yourselves? One of the ways you're doing this is by learning and by thinking and planning. And then, but secondly, you need to translate that into actions in your own place where you are. And that might, I don't know how that comes about, because each one of our own situations is very unique. But this is something which I've tried to do throughout my whole adult life, is be very open about my values and what I'm trying to do, so that other people can, you know, can approach me. I've tried to find those other people who are also leaders, pioneers, people who want to take responsibility. Can we help each other? Can we form a cooperative? Can we form a mutual support group? Remember that we're trying to build mutually beneficial relationships. So things that are going to help us meet our needs, but also they're going to meet the needs of the person that we're relating to. Gosh, now you our friends there at Kakuma have the ambition of permaculture gardens, and what their experience is, if I'm saying this rightly, is there's lots of small initiatives that come and they go a bit, and what maybe is needed is a joined up plan. I think even today, other people from Kakuma introduce themselves to me, and so maybe what I want to, maybe what you should be thinking about next, Andre and Hassan, is what are your next steps? You've identified some of the things that you need. I don't know what else. How do you go about building a bigger group or building a bigger awareness of the intention of that you have of starting permaculture there? Is that a good question?
Yeah, what we plan, because of if we get support, we plan to organize a training, because we have already getting the knowledge, and after the knowledge, after getting the knowledge, we must go back to the community, starting share what we are getting from you guys. So our plan is to train people about permaculture, because when we get knowledge, we should go back to our community, starting them about the knowledge that we have. So, and starting some project, different project, because not only permaculture, because permaculture is a big project. So that was our plan. If we get fund or we get any support, we can make starting doing a training like this. Yeah.
The challenge is getting that over that first hurdle, and like you say, if we can get a bit of funding or some resources.
No, not only funds. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah.
We need tools, because we can't do any trainings without tools, seeds, those different things. Maybe we can do, we can buying refreshment for those people, buying papers, books, manila papers. So those things we need. Yeah.
As I said, yeah, you need a certain resource to get yourself started. I understand, and yeah, I it's a really interesting question, and perhaps something that we should think about as a team, but about how to teach better remotely. How could we support you to to deliver a PDC there in Kakuma or there in Lesotho or I don't know, or to perhaps even just to plan simple sessions that illustrate the key points that we're trying to make. Maybe that would be a useful way forward. Because this is how I like to think about permaculture is it's about seeing the patterns, and patterns are universal. You know, you see a okay, we have greetings from Congo from Akile, who has that wonderful permaculture center in Goma. Thank you, Stella. Every situation is unique. Each one of us is unique. We're not the same, but the patterns are the same. Just like you know, like me, you've got 2 ears, a nose, a mouth, you know, eyebrows, whatever, eyes. That's a pattern. So you can, oh, that's a human. I see that very easy. Also, but we humans are very good at remembering patterns. Andre, was that a question?
Not, it is not a question, but I would like to congratulate first, because maybe I can request all of us to congratulate Steve for the work that he's doing for us, because since I met Steve and getting the knowledge from Steve, there's some changes that I'm getting, or maybe not only me, but even from Kakuma, because we started recruiting some women and teaching about permaculture. And after teaching them, they are starting cultivating some own garden at home and changing food, because of there is no vegetables here in the camp, so they starting changing vegetables. So they are starting requesting us how we can make a big group and teach them about permaculture. So our request, it is not only from Steve, it can be for all the group, because we can support each other, not only financial, maybe ideas, and share projects. So that was my addition about Kakuma. Kakuma needs support, not only money, or it can be ideas, share knowledge like what we are sharing here. So we need support from you guys.
Thank you very much for that. And that's really good to hear that feedback, that it's getting people thinking, and you have to start somewhere. Please, you have your hand. Molet Sani, you're so welcome.
Thank you very much, Steve. Well, I'm just adding on to what my brother Andre has just said, supporting each other. Well, I did my PDC last year in July, but I haven't done anything. So I'm just adding also to the point that we made, Steve, about maybe doing an introduction to permaculture course here in Lesotho, supporting me remotely from where you are, and every one of us here supporting each other, supporting that wonderful project in Kakuma. That would be really helpful for all of us, and that would really that would be a first hurdle for me that could maybe make things easier for me to maybe progress on my permaculture journey. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And it's really good to know that story from you. And you know, it is a big journey from you receive this knowledge, permaculture, and so much information. What am I going to do with it? Start with yourself. So you've been letting those ideas absorb and think about, and you know, and now you can begin your journey now. Observe and interact, catch and store energy, and then the yields will come slowly. So that's great. That and I think this idea about consciously building relationships is also so important. So you're getting that, and this is how we do it. There is no single answer or magic, solution, other than being consistent over time, having a plan, and then letting that plan evolve as we do it. Start small, set yourself targets that you can achieve, and let it grow. So we're building soil, we're catching and storing energy, we're building relationships with other people, we're starting to have a vision about where we want to go, what kind of community or society that, and understand it's for us to create that by leadership, through actions, through intention, and by setting things in motion. But don't over control things. Allow things to grow and develop a little bit in their own way also. I think this is the kind of the permaculture way. Okay, so I'll say a few more things, and then we'll wind up a bit and think about what we want to do next week. This is session 3 of 6, and we can think about what we do after as well. But I wanted to have a focus for this, and so today we talked about leadership again. We framed it into looking into the future. We said we don't have a crystal ball. We know that the whole energy world is going to change. We know that there's going to be stresses on the climate. And so we have to be prepared for that and to bring that into our thinking and into our long-term planning. But we have to live in the present too and start from ourselves where we're at now. That's all that we can do. And in that process of committing to action, we already start to create change in the world and change in the awareness of the people around us, just like the guys from Kakuma have just said. So there we go. So I will keep thinking about what a theme for next week, but I'm very interested to hear any ideas that you might have, and we shall keep on going. And it's nice to have a feedback from our friend. So Akile Bifimbo, I think his name is, and he's a Congolese man who is in Goma and has developed a permaculture training center there. It's on Lake Kivu, I think. And he was in Kampala a year ago or so on a health visit. And Stella and Laura went to visit him in the hospital and just help build that relationship a little bit. So it's lovely to hear news from him now. And I think that's a good example of, just in a small way, we build alliances with other like-minded people. It really helps. So by having these meetings and sharing in this way, we become aware of each other. It really, really helps. It's really reinforcing. So we keep on doing that. Okay. Anyway, I will let you speak.
Yeah, Steve, we went with Laura and Clovis as well. Yeah. And to seeing him in the hospital, and he felt being cared of, it was our first time to meet him, and this is what we encourage of the team. If you come to Uganda, please let us know you're in Uganda, and we shall be where you are. Any of you, please don't hide. We care about our team members at any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Any closing thoughts from you, Laura?
Well, my closing thoughts are that when it comes to the climate crisis, it is pushing people to more than they can adapt. For example, it's now creating climate refugees, causing food insecurity, and so much more. But I want to tell everyone here that as long as you have a voice, your voice has a story to tell. Every story has a solution to offer, and every solution has a life to save. So in your own capacity, you need to believe in yourself that you can do something to make a difference. You can do something to engage people that are in need more than you do, because now that is what they call a leader. You can be a leader. And also, as we ask for help from governments and from different people, we need to realize that even us, within us, we have the capability to do what we want the governments to do for us. We just have to be united. We have to think and work together to attain what we really need. Then when it comes to what can we do next, a solution I would give to the people in Kakuma, if you are planning to carry out a training, this is something you could start with. And this is if Steve can agree to it. Ask Steve to carry out a Zoom meeting just for you, Andrew, and the people in the refuge camp, okay? Then learn from him and see how is he going to conduct these people? How is he going to speak to them? What does it take for him to create awareness and empower these people, so that the next sessions you have, Steve doesn't have to be there. You now have to take it on for yourselves. But before you begin any training, at least you should involve him in the first or the second trainings of these people, so that you're able to know how to do it, what to do it, when to do it, where to do it, and how best you can continue with it. Then each one of us here, we have a role within us that we feel we can do. Address Steve, tell him, I can actually do this if you help me out, guide me on how to do this, and this. And you can already start from there. We don't always have to start big. We can start from the small steps. Thank you.
Wise words for that. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? A closing thought?
Yeah, what I want to thank you guys for the maybe advice, and from Stella and Laura. I'm still be my dear friends, and maybe we understand, and we still be involving for such trainings. Thank you, and let us meet next week for other topic. But our today meeting was very interesting for yeah, congratulations.
That's great feedback. Thank you very much.
Yeah, also I would like to thank you, Steve, for inviting me here on this very informative meeting, and I will try to be here on the next 3 meetings. Maybe if that would be possible for me, I will try by all means to be here. But if I'm not here, know that maybe some financial problems, because I have to buy data to enter these sessions. But I would like to thank everyone: Andre, Hassan, Stella, Laura, Janice, she's already left. I want to thank you all so much for my being here and sharing your journey. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yes. Stella says bring a friend next time, so you're welcome to bring a friend next time. That's a good suggestion. Okay, folks, I'm going to wish you all a very good evening, and we will see you again next week, and we'll think about how to build on this. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Stella, Laura. Bye.
Bye.